Hey there, my friend. Steve Gamlin here with another installment of the interview series. And here's basically how my interviews go. I find cool people who have had an impact on my life and have conversations with them, because being a regular, everyday, real guy who teaches everything that life has taught him so far, I like to introduce you to all the people who've been part of my journey. Today is no exception. Today's guest is a gentleman named Carlos Perez. Carlos and I have been friends for about 15 years now. Our
15
journeys
years,
have been through the early days together in BNI, Business Networking International. And of course, continuing now, I've been part of his events. He's been part of mine. Here's the biggest reason. Well, here's the second reason. First off, Carlos is just a very cool person. Here's the second reason I wanted to invite him to be part of this conversation. My vision board program, my work, deals with numerous levels of people's lives and what they're looking to create for goals, what they see as their vision, and how they plan their action. What Carlos is amazing at is digging deeper, getting into the wiring, getting into the energy, getting into the thought patterns and the behavior patterns of people to understand, so they get the understanding that they're either on the path that they choose to be on, or they may have a little bit of work to do to be able to direct themselves toward the outcomes they say they desire. And I've been one of those people who said I wanted one thing, but man, my patterns and my thoughts and my self-deprecating behavior told a different tale. So today we're going to focus on that. We're going to talk about our roots, going to talk about focus, talk about the knowledge of self, inner peace, and of course, having the vision for what you want. Carlos, it is a blast, my friend. I love you, and I'm so happy that you're here as part of this conversation.
And I love you too, Steve, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation. It's great to look back at the journey that we started together through the mutual connection of our networking events through Business Networking International. And every few days of the week, I drive by the American Red Cross office in Concord, where we first taught or co-taught a class together. And it feels like it was just yesterday, and I'm just so grateful to see where you've gone, the direction that you've grown and blossomed, and how you're helping others be part of that journey, and also to help expand in their own expansion of their path, their purpose with passion, to help themselves and to help others. So this is going to be fun. I can't wait.
It's funny because people go, well, how do you come up with the stuff you talk about? With Carlos and I, believe me, there is never a shortage of stuff. Even if we run into each other somewhere, all of a sudden we're looking down and going, I'm late for my next meeting, because it's
Right.
just, it's so real and it's so organic. So why don't you let people who may not be aware of who you are and what
Sure.
you're all about, give a bit of a background of what got you here and what your main drive is, what keeps you going and growing in your businesses.
Absolutely. Well, I've been a licensed chiropractor for almost 17 years, and I started my work focusing mostly on sports injuries, basically helping the aches and pains of the physical body, and really treating the body as more of a mechanical object, and treating it like a machine, the way a lot of Western practices are created. And it was within my 5th or 6th year of practice where I started noticing that people's issues were in their tissues. In other words, the way they were thinking, the way they were feeling about a life situation, circumstance, or event was actually manifesting as part of their physical problem. And I couldn't help but notice that when they were in a better relationship with their issue and not treating it as much of an adversary, but maybe more of an ally relationship, that the physical discomfort started to lessen or go away altogether. And so that was in 2010. And from that moment on, I really went into deeper study and exploration of the mind-body connection, which immediately brought me to the use of sound as the primary modality or technique that I use to help people, still as a chiropractor, but it's less about alignment of their spine and more about alignment of their life, like their body, the mind, spirit, kind of having a nice mutual conversation within all those systems and all those layers, and treating the person as a whole. And it's been every day, every week, I say to the clients that nothing surprises me, but it always amazes me how the thing that's happening in here, the conversation that's happening down here, if you can see my heart there, and how that ripples through the body, it's all connected. And you can't separate. What you resist persists. So My clients motivate me in the continue to search for more truth and answers. And I love sound, and sound's a fun tool to use with people. It's non-invasive, it's comfortable, and it can produce some very profound results very quickly.
Yeah, and I've been part of several, I shouldn't even say several anymore, I think coming up on 8 or 10 of
At
your
least.
sound journey events. And
Mhm.
it's amazing because each one has had a different theme.
Yeah.
You educate people when you're starting out. Here's where we're going tonight. Here's what we're doing our best to affect and impact. Here's what may happen as a result. And it's funny because I'm a person whose brain goes a million miles an hour at all times. And one of the funniest articles I ever wrote was the day I was almost late for one of your sessions, and it inspired an article called "Oh crap, I got to go
Crap.
relax."
Right.
And I remember writing that down on your desk, and that actually turned into one of the most impactful events because I had some serious concerns going on and some serious fears and apprehension of a huge speaking event I had coming up all the way on the other side of the country. And it took me a long time to calm down and get into it. And I remember sitting there at the end of the event, and it was one in which you guided us to see the outcome we wanted. And I saw myself getting applause. I saw myself talking with people. I saw myself being hugged and embraced by the people who hired me to bring me in. And that set the tone for the next 2-3 months of anticipation. And it actually manifested exactly in that form at the event.
That's
So
wonderful.
it was pretty incredible. So why don't you explain to people how the sound can impact them and what they need to maybe be conscious of, aware of to help get the best results?
Sure. I start out by telling folks that there's a universal truth of everything existing in a vibrational state. In other words, science has continued to show us that even the most stationary of an object, let's say a road that hasn't moved, when you take all of those molecules and break them down into the smallest form, all you see is this constant fluctuation and vibration of all these particles, literally moving in and out of existence and changing forms. But it densifies into this physical reality that we are certain is dense, rigid, and not able to change. But sound, which has this beautiful pattern of wave-like state, interacts with all things, whether it's your physical body, your thoughts, which are also vibrating in energy, your feelings, and it has a way of interacting with those vibrations to almost create this, I call it it creates a dialogue. So sound creates a dialogue with your own physical, mental, and emotional dialogue that you're participating in. And it has a way to establish what's called coherence. Coherence is just a word to mean that everything is now in synchronicity, having a mutually agreeable state of existence. And a lot of times, that's all that is needed to help a person either become more relaxed or become more alert on what they're not able to see because they were stuck in a state that was more of a, let's say, interference or dissonance or like static or chaos, like a radio station that you're not really completely clear in. And there's just too much noise, too much sound. If anything, now all the sound is having the same conversation. So that's the gist of how the sound healing works. But then your own individual intention, which is a huge part of it, Steve, is a key part in allowing that frequency to express itself in the best way possible for you. So there's an equation that says frequency plus intention equals healing. And healing is that state of kind of like coming back home, feeling very whole, and being kind of in alignment with all aspects of yourself. So let's not forget the importance and the power of that intention and being clear and crystalline clear on what you need, which may be different than what you want.
Mm. What do you see as some of the biggest issues that people have when they come to you or come to one of your events or the conversations you have when, in the vision board world, we talk about what do you want? What do you want? That's what's coming out of your head. But when it doesn't exactly connect or be coherent or in sync with what's inside your thought patterns, what you say and think about yourself and your actions, how can people become more aware of the, I guess, necessity to change if they want to start achieving different outcomes? What's the best way for them to look inward and start doing some of the healing there?
That is a great question, and the answer sometimes frustrates people when I tell them. The answer to your question of what is it people need to do to be more clear on that is this. Now, the quieter we become, the more we can actually hear. But interestingly enough, the use of sound in a meditative experience or even a sound journey helps a person be more focused on being able to hear that inner dialogue, because we all have inner dialogue, and sometimes we think it comes from here, but there actually is a voice that comes from kind of the center of our chest, and through relaxed breathing and listening through certain tones, you can actually be very clear on what it is you need. And so that's kind of like our compass, and it's a question of helping people reconnect with their own GPS instead of relying on the GPS of, let's say, the masses, because sometimes it's people, places, institutions, cultures, etc., that tell us who we're supposed to be. But who are you before the world told you who you're supposed to be? And that's an important question to connect with on the regular. Once a week, couple times a week, who am I? And that's it. Just notice what shows up. And you are who you are in spite and despite of efforts that others have to try to make you be something that you're not.
And I think that's really important where you said, who am I? And then listening to your own voice, not what other people expect. And believe me, I spent much of my life being a chronic people pleaser. Well, I'm this to this person and this to this. And then all of a sudden I realized, man, I wear a lot of hats.
It's exhausting.
So who am I, or who do I want to be among all this? Maybe it's a piece of this or a piece of that or a piece of this, but being your own true self with your own roots and not other people's hand kind of in there pushing buttons is a really important thing. And I think sometimes that scares people. I know it used to scare me when I, about 16 years ago, just before we met, I went through probably the worst period of adjustment in my life in losing my identity in many ways. I quit my radio career. I went through a divorce. I was 62 grand in debt at age 35. So financially I was a failure, and I crawled home to live with family. And that's, for as bad as that year and a half, 2 years was, it led to all the great stuff now, because finally I was on my own, identifying as just me. And it's kind of like the Wile E. Coyote cartoon. I rode that Acme rocket roller skate off the cliff and went down in those little puff of smoke, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and the journey began. So I think wherever people are in life, to understand, they need to get in touch and listen. And believe me, silence is not the easiest thing in the world for me. I need constant, or used to need constant noise, whether it was background or internal, or my mind racing a million miles an hour. What would be the first step for people to understand and to help maybe try to dig and get in touch beyond just the silence, because they may hear all the other voices, or maybe that's your advice?
So actually, to answer your question, it's funny because you actually touched on some key phrases in describing where you were in that process. And when I explained to folks a bit of the elemental components, in other words, the indigenous medicine, some consider like traditions from shamans and so forth, everything begins when we connect with the element of earth. And so the element of earth is another way of saying going back to your roots of what are the things that nurture you, what are the things that nourish you, and what are the things that you feel support you. Now, this isn't being selfish, but rather you're taking that time to honor who you are and allow yourself that permission to receive nurture, nourishment, and support. And that may come from going outside, being in nature. I have a lot of clients that they thrive when they go alongside the riverbanks here at Sewell's Falls, someplace local in Concord, or maybe take the trip out to the ocean. But a lot of times it can just be being outside in the sun and going to a place that's a little bit quieter, where the sounds of nature are really there helping you to ground, to center, and to feel more stillness, relative stillness. So that would be key.
Yeah. And not just the go out, pop in your earbuds and listen to your favorite radio station all the time, which
Right.
when I'm working in the yard, I tend to do that. If I have the lawnmower or something going and I've got ear protection on, I'm thinking, do I want to listen to a muted version of the lawnmower or do I want to listen to some music that makes me happy?
Yep.
But just about a week ago, had a long day. It was here in the recording studio, got quite a bit done, but it was a bit of a frustrating day because of lack of progress on something. And I went upstairs to Tina. And I said, what time are you going to be done your work? So I'll start making dinner. And she said about an hour. So I'm going to go out and I'm just going to pull weeds in the rocks off the side of the driveway. Looked at my iPod and said, nah, I'm just going to listen to the yard. I don't know when 10,000 crickets moved into our yard, but they were singing. And as I was pulling weeds, some of them kind of came out to look at me. They climbed up on the rocks and looked and went back in their little holes. And I've never had a more beautiful moment in the yard. And actually at the end of that hour, when I went back in the house, my day I had changed. You know, my attitude, my opinion, my outlook on the whole day got re-energized by that little bit of time, getting rid of something that was taking the beauty out of our yard and listening to that song. So sound, just plugging in and listening to that was such a beautiful gift.
That's wonderful to hear. It's said in these traditions that there's a frequency in nature that does not exist or happen as easily when you're confined by four walls, a ceiling, and a floor. And so just even, honestly, Steve, even in my office now, before we got on the call, I took a moment to just go quiet and I could hear some cars passing outside. Now, it's not that cars all of a sudden started coming by, but I'm actually more aware of it because I'm expanding my awareness to notice nature even from the indoors. And we can do that. Everyone can do that. And it's a practice and a skill set that takes just a few times to really, I would say, hone in. But we are hopefully all able to go to a place that's close enough to our homes, even if it's just right outside the back door, the front door, or even just opening a window. And like you said, all of a sudden 10,000 crickets moved into the neighborhood and just sing to you. And they were always there. They were always there.
Yep.
So yeah, nature's medicine.
Yeah, love that. Now, when we're talking about people having the goals, having the vision for their entire life, a lot of times there's going to be Jersey barriers, roadblocks, brick walls between themselves and what they say they want or what they really do want, but aren't quite sure how to get started. What would you share as ideas or tactics or strategies or helpful hints, things to think about for people, even if it's very slowly at first, to start to advance toward the goals? Because as you just said, just opening a window and hearing a car or two, noticing the opportunities, because all it is, it's action, it's seeing opportunity, it's awareness of ways we can get closer to these things. Because unlike some people out there who talk about the law of attraction like a genie in a bottle, you don't just wish for something and have it fall into your driveway. We both know this.
Right.
What, from your side of things, in what you specialize in, what would you say would be great opportunities for people to not only see what they want, but also understand that there's a certain path for them to get there?
So I'm reminded often of this meme that shows a person that's holding onto a set of balloons with one hand, and the other hand they're trying to reach for something that says tomorrow. And I think the balloons say yesterday. And the whole notion is that if you let go of what you're holding on to from yesterday, or in other words, the past, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot easier to fully grab and reach for what's waiting for you. And so it's that two-part process of letting go of that Jersey barrier of what's holding you back, and then being clear on what is the feeling state you're looking to actually experience by virtue of writing a book, creating an album, starting a podcast, whatever the goal is for that individual. So the question is really what contains, it's more powerful than the answer. So the question you ask is more powerful than the answer. And so what I mean by that is asking a question such as, what do I need to let go of today to fully experience my highest good tomorrow? Is an example of a question you could ask yourself and then just quietly notice what shows up. And perhaps, just now as I asked that question, believe it or not, my palms got a little sweaty. So that's for me to now explore and notice, what am I nervous about? Is there something that perhaps I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with? And so maybe after this call, I'll recheck that and notice, what is that? Where is that? Etc. So usually you let go or play with letting go to then connect with more of what needs to happen so that I can be in alignment with my purpose, my path, and my passion.
Love that. And believe me, as someone who packed a U-Haul's worth of old stuff with flat tires and pushed it and pulled it and sweated and struggled for many years, that's actually a question I've asked myself based on our previous conversations and time together, in notes and in messages we've shared over the years, which have been a tremendous help for me. I'm traveling lighter, leaner, and meaner than ever before. Nice. And meaner, not in a bad way, but meaner in a very determined,
empowered
way. A very empowered path. Just lighter than ever. And a lot of it goes through to understanding, because I'm such a practical, hands-on, blue-collar guy all these years. If you can't hold it in your hand, maybe it doesn't have as much bearing. But unfortunately, my mind and my heart were telling me different things. But what about all this stuff from before?
Exactly. And you know what else, Steve, I want to mention real quick, because you just reminded me of something. I said earlier in our conversation that the issues are in the tissues. So believe it or not, if you've been experiencing a set of physical issues, let's say a discomfort, a tendinitis, or some discomfort anywhere in your body, there's a pretty good chance that area is holding a charge of an old conflict, of an old stressor or something that might have to do with your ability to communicate, your ability to receive criticism, your ability to set a boundary, your ability to be creative and have imagination and so forth. So there are plenty of resources available that help people understand, what is my left shoulder pain telling me more about my mental and emotional self that perhaps I wasn't aware of. So that can be helpful for folks that maybe say, well, I don't know what's holding me back. I'm not sure. Okay, well, how does your body feel? How's your digestion? How's this been? And track that and follow that, almost like go on the trail and see what your body's trying to tell you, just not with words, but with feelings and sensations.
Yeah. Interesting, because there have been times where I wake up and I say, I'm not creative today. I've got a headache. I've got this. I've got that. I'm tired. And I would just go into 30 days of just saying, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I just can't create anything new. Of course, my head's down. I'm not seeing opportunity. And I'm just focused on the fact that I'm tired and can't create anything. Well, then back in May, a dear friend of mine, part of my team, said, all right, everybody, we're gonna jolt everybody back. Winter's over, summer's coming. We're gonna jolt everybody back. Challenge, you write an article a day. And I'm thinking, I haven't written an article in 2 months that I've liked. I've dashed off a couple of words. 31 days, I wrote 26 articles of 400 words or more, which have now become shared on all over LinkedIn. And they've become radio shows. They've become, some of them, videos, Facebook Lives. They're in a national magazine, some of them called Success Profiles Magazine by a dear friend, Brian K. Wright. So, and all of a sudden, it just unlocked this firestorm of creativity and joy in creativity. It wasn't like, I got to go write another article. It just burst forth. So, how did that happen? Because you can explain it better than I can. How did that happen? And how can other people learn from that when they're feeling stuck, when they're feeling like not just that they're rooted, but that their feet are in concrete in
Sure.
some area of their life. They see and they say where they want to go through vision board or visualization, whatever. How do they start to get unstuck and realize and tap into what they already have, but the door's closed?
So that's one of my favorite questions, because I have this way of talking about the idea of what we describe as being stuck. Now, not to dismiss or take away from that feeling when people have that, because it certainly is the best way to describe that feeling state, quote unquote, being stuck. However, there is no such thing as anything in the universe ever truly being stuck. Instead, what's actually happening, Steve, is there's a recurring vibrational pattern that stays in the same exact trajectory, almost as if a record player and needle would stay in the same groove somehow, never going anywhere else. And so ultimately, just like with that example, you could pick up the needle and move it somewhere else. For us, in our human experience, what helps is to create movement, period. Whether that movement is flooded with creative juices or not, but physically moving, like being told to write and put the pen on the paper or get the fingers on the keys, is you physically moving in relationship to what you think you're stuck with. And a lot of times, in just creating that movement, it creates a momentum or an inertia to help that needle move into another track. And I will always encourage a person to physically move, to jump up and down, do a couple jumping jacks, do a burpee, do a push-up, a sit-up. And by physically moving like that, you kind of jolt the system a little bit, and then go back to that activity, task, or project, and notice what's different, because you're now different. And because you've shifted, your experience will shift as a result of that.
Yeah.
So
and I know that to
what's
be true.
happening in that. Mm-hmm.
I've been on a tear since that. I mean, I look back now, I'm like 26 articles in a month. I used to get my call from the publisher of Success Profiles magazine going, okay, it's the 14th. I need the article on the 15th. And I'd go, it's in process. I'm fine tuning. And then we get off the call. I'd go like, thumbs up. Oh, crap. I got to go write an article now. And I'm looking around going, okay, something just inspire me. I'm stuck. And I would tell myself, I'm stuck. And then when someone else lifted the needle and said, okay, we need 30 tracks of music from you in the next, or 31 in the month of May, and wrote 26 articles. It was just that's actually part of why we're talking, because I wanted to get people to understand, because we hear people all the time. I have people come to me, Steve, I'm stuck. I don't have a vision. I never knew quite how to explain it. Now I do. Yeah. And I hope that explanation alone just helped a lot of people and made them go, oh yeah, my needle is stuck.
Steve, I try to explain to the clients that it's not for me to take away from you your discomfort, your frustration, or your stress. It's up to me to help you realize that you're in a relationship with it. And by participating in an echoing conversation of I'm stuck, all you're saying is that in this moment I'm choosing to notice how nothing is changing. So that is all you will continue to experience. And it's everything is motion. Everything is in constant motion. And by generating movement in some trajectory, wave, or form, even if it's unrelated to that stressor, watch how it quickly moves you out of that perceived stuckness, which is not a stuckness. It's a recurring kind of like just bouncing a ball off the wall. It just keeps coming back to the same point. It's in movement. I assure you it's in movement, but it only has one target. So by changing and moving that trajectory, it gives it opportunity to move and express. And that's all that's ever needed. Just we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And so do those feelings.
Yeah.
So own it. It's all right.
Yeah.
You don't need to have blame, shame, or guilt. You can be like, right now, I got the creativity of a fruit fly. I don't know. Maybe fruit flies are really creative, and that's a compliment. I don't know.
Yeah, for their entire 9-hour lifespan, is that?
You never know. They might
What a
be
career.
like, Picasso's. But just invite. And by the way, inviting humor, inviting silliness.
Yeah.
In the shamanic tradition of dagger medicine that I practice, this is a huge part of alchemy. In order to access the alchemic nature that we all have to transform and transmute something, we need humor, play, and joy. So humor, play, and joy is like the holy trinity trifecta of helping to move us into more of those higher states.
Yep. And you
so
just
thank
explained
you, Fruit Fly.
thank you, Fruit Fly. You've just explained exactly. People often ask me, well, Steve, do you ever have down days? Oh yeah, I have down days. I get in a funk. I get in a rut. I feel stuck. And I get asked often, well, what do you do to get out of that? I said, well, I leave the house and I go commit an act of kindness or 2 or 10, however many it takes. And it's funny because at the time of this recording, yesterday morning was my rotation in providing the bag lunches for Liberty House to help the homeless and in need veterans. And it became an entire morning dedicated to little acts of kindness and making people laugh, just making people laugh everywhere I went, whether it was strangers or people I knew. And when I got home, it was the best version of me that had been in the studio all week long. And just this, and it hasn't been a bad week at all, but it just took it to this other level because I had this connection. I heard laughter. I was helping to create and experience joy myself. And we never know what other people are dealing with. So the energy we bring to anything we can be the fruit fly. For that little bit of time we're together, that little lifespan, we're stuck with that analogy now.
Yeah.
But I just think with the way you just explained that, it's not stuck. It's a pattern that keeps repeating. So break the pattern, get outside of it, hear something differently, do something differently, bring a different energy to it. And now I've been a part of a number of your sound journeys. And in addition to the crystal bowls, you also have a drum that you use.
Yes.
And I know during a very particularly challenging time in my life that you walk around during these live events, and there are anywhere from 15 to 40 people on the floor on their mats in a pretty darkened room, and you'll go around. And let me just say, between the bowls, which resonated in my ears, and I sat in a corner that was so wonderfully resonant, the reverb in that corner, I swear the music loved me a little more.
Well, that space was always called the ejector seat for a reason, because of the way the sound waves all seem to like collimate and funnel to that spot. It's a little more intense, I would say, than any other spots in that room. So you were definitely in it.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason also that I chose that was in case anyone needed to come in or leave, I was next to the door. And it just to offer to help someone out or hold the door or whatever, that was part of the reason. And then all of a sudden I noticed the sound and the quality of the sound. And when you walked around with the drum, I felt that in my chest. It beat like my heart, and it put me in such a calm place. So I won't ask you to walk around with the drum for this, but would you share maybe a couple of tones of one of the crystal bowls and explain maybe what that particular frequency does? And of course, the impact that a sound meditation journey can have when you invite people to be in the room with you, because I know you've got a whole new series coming up.
Absolutely.
That I will check my schedule and be there for as many of them as I can, because I absolutely am altered, adjusted, changed, impacted by them every single time, no matter where my life has been, high or low, always impacted by these.
That means a lot to me. And as you were saying that, I thought to myself, I'm like a sonic tailor. Like I alter minds, feelings, hearts, bodies, or something. Because, and I'll say this much: it's some of it is me through my intention, but a lot of it is truly with the frequencies produced by a variety of these instruments. So the drum that I play is a giant 22-inch hand drum that produces such a nice low-end tone, but more than anything, it produces this very long infrasound wave, which people feel viscerally. Even if I'm 3 to 4 or 5 feet away, they feel it going through their body. And the intention behind whatever instrument's being played is what helps to shape the experience for the individual. So there's been some sessions where the drumming was meant to help kind of, let's say, come on, folks, it's time to go into action. Let's get it going here. Let's step into our power. And other times the intention might be to really ground, to calm and center, similar to your experience. So what I find fascinating is that it's not always the tone or the instrument, but the intention. Comes back to that intention piece. So with the singing bowls, they're all concert pitched to a specific tone, just like a note on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And that frequency is shown to help, I would say, interact with a particular part of a person's body or region, whether it's their lower body, their abdomen, their chest area, and so forth. And with intention plus that frequency, it can allow for more, I would say, naturally innate exchanges to happen for that individual. So really the person is helping to self-calibrate and recalibrate themselves. It's considered, sound healing is almost like sound tuning. You know, I'm providing a tone plus an intention, and then your body is assimilating that information and utilizing it to restore a more organized pattern within itself. And for some person, one individual, that might help them feel a little bit more comforted, whereas someone else might suddenly feel like, I'm ready to run up a mountain for some reason. I don't know why. So rather than a crystal bowl, just because of the sheer size of it, it would cover my whole face, I wanted to show a little bit of this. This is a Himalayan bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's made out of a variety of metals. It's been hammered by hand. I would say this one is close to about 40 years old based on the information that I was given when I purchased the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's made out of different metals, Steve, it's going to produce different kinds of tones that are called overtones versus a crystal bowl, which produces a very distinct, singular, coherent tone, give or take a few harmonics that the ear may not hear, but recording equipment will easily show as additional waves on the screen. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of a metal bowl and a simple mallet that when it's struck on its own, hopefully we can hear that, mm-hmm. It produces a certain tone. And when we combine other bowls, we create these beautiful harmonies as well as with some toning and chanting to give the person an experience ultimately that helps to activate what's called the relaxation response. It helps quiet the nervous system. It helps reduce the breathing rate. It helps reduce the blood pressure. A lot of the science around sound healing is in regards to that relaxation response and ultimately the brain waves and how they then start to settle down just a little bit to help a person become more present of that exact moment. Mm. So in other words, you're fully here and now versus stuck on what's happened 3 hours ago or thinking ahead of what happens tomorrow morning at 7.
Right.
So yeah, in a group sound healing event, we use a variety of different instruments plus intention, and that's what really shapes the experience. So I always tell folks, I have a 20-month-old son who plays the bowl every day. Sometimes he uses the mallet, other times he uses my back scratcher, and other times he uses, and it's hysterical because he's so interesting because he sees me play it. He'll squat next to it and he'll start to just tap it. And then like the Fred Flintstone Bam Bam comes out and he'll just start wailing on it. And I wouldn't call that sound healing.
Maybe not. No.
Maybe not.
No, because the dog's howling 8 houses away.
The back scratcher is my favorite because it produces such a high pitch and he just laughs. Yeah. But intention really is what shifts it. So I could hold the bowl and just take a moment to set an intention of just, what if everyone who hears this tone, no matter when they listen to this particular broadcast recording, if they could take a moment to just allow and invite gratitude to be a part of their life experience, to receive, accept, and notice deep appreciation and gratitude for anything in their life. that sound wave starts to move through space, move through you, through your ears, and it starts to create this cascade of events. When we combine that with the intention of gratitude, if we were to repeat that, Steve, for a few more minutes, it would be considerably overwhelming in a good way of how much gratitude a person would probably start recognizing for things that they maybe wouldn't have thought of before as the object of gratitude.
Mm.
And gratitude, as you know, is such an essential, fundamental part of what helps us move through life with ease, with grace, and helps to lift us up from whenever we probably have gotten a bit of a, roundhouse or an uppercut because of life. And so gratitude is a choice. I fully accept that. And you're not always going to feel maybe grateful, but if you try, watch how that changes your relationship to the issue that's happening in life.
Mm. And as somebody who for the past 7 years has woken up each day, and I have gratitude journal, which I keep underneath my laptop up in the office. So I flip open the laptop to power it up. I reach around and I grab the gratitude journal and I write down my 3 favorite moments from the previous day. There are days where it's tough to find 3 moments that were really great. And it comes down to usually making somebody laugh or an act of kindness that someone did for me or someone else. Or in the case of tomorrow, I get to be in a broadcast with my buddy Carlos. So that's going to be one of the gratitudes. But you are so right. When you start stacking them up and your antennae are up for them, and it's impossible to ignore them because they've always been there. But now we're tuned in to being aware of that frequency.
So I feel, Steve, that the sound work and the sound meditation is almost a way of helping to boost, if you will, that signal or receptivity, boost the receptivity to those signals. And anyone can do it from any place, anywhere. I mean, I love when an individual can be at a live event because that group dynamic of a live event offers something different, perhaps, than just maybe an audio recording or an app. But still, it's amazing with modern technology how we have access to so many incredible tools to help a person feel more grounded, balanced, centered, or in harmony.
And one of the things too that for the members of the Vision Board Mastery website, we are going to have the links in there on this rebroadcast page to your recordings for those who can't make it to a live event or may not be in the general area. We've got people all around the world who are part of this community. So the links are there for your recordings. And one question I love to ask people, and obviously don't give a name of a person, but what is your favorite breakthrough or what is your favorite celebration moment with, say, a client or somebody from an event that followed up with you or gave you the feedback or circled back around in life and came and said, because of our time together, because of our work together, because of what you shared, this happened in my life. What's your favorite celebration or favorite moment?
I'm grateful that there have been many celebrations and many moments. I'm going to own that. I'm truly grateful for the path that I've been on and those that I've shared the path with. But there's one in particular that actually comes to mind of a female. She was never a client. She was an individual that I met at a ritual to help with grieving of ancestors or grief in relationship to ancestors. And there's times, Steve, that maybe it happens to you where you're not always aware of exactly what you say to someone. It's almost as if the message is just coming through and out, and you're the conduit, you're the channel. And I remember that we were talking in private about the whole notion that how others treat you says everything about them. How you respond to how others treat you, that says everything about you. So that's part of the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, and some of the works that are part of that Toltec tradition, although there's many authors that have talked about that and written about that. And I guess I must have said something deeper beyond that around an example of how we can take things personally and suddenly enter this victim consciousness. And that just set this person on this huge, like, LED light bulbs going off everywhere, realizing that she was unable to, up until that moment, separate from someone else's view or perspective or analysis of her, and saw it as a problem. And now she started realizing that it had more to do about them. It's as if in that moment, Steve, she reclaimed all this power. And I saw her 3 months, August, September, October, November, 4 months later at a different event. I didn't even recognize her. Her posture, it looked like she lost 10 years of age.
Yeah.
And just, she gave me this huge hug and went on to thank me. But she said, I tell everyone now about the 4 agreements, which is, be impeccable with your word, always do your best, don't make assumptions, and don't take things personally. 4 very simple, incredible, powerful rules to live by. But that moment, and there was some drumming I had done before that, and I think that might have been like the opening that needed to happen for that. And that just really, like, that, I don't know why, that particular one really does stand out when you ask. Before you even finished asking your question, I could see her and think, yeah, that's her. That was amazing.
And part of the reason I love to ask that question is I love to see the faces of the people reliving the experience, because as someone,
Sure.
James Malinchak is a speaker, but also educates other speakers on how to build their businesses. And I have a recording from one of his boot camps from many years ago. And one of his attendees stood up and said, I don't tell stories, I relive them. Mm-hmm. So I love to invite people to relive their favorite stories, because there is a difference.
And thank you for that, because I truly I'm here with you, but I just took a little detour and just looped around like a giant boomerang, and that was cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I love it. And that's why people love to hear the story of me and how Tina and I, my wife Tina, fell in love. And she refuses to come to an event and see me do it, because she says, I'll have to wear a paper bag on my head and I'll go running out the door. I said, well, you can't wear a paper bag. First off, you're the cute one.
Right.
And second of all, I said, who are we to rob people of a story? And
it's incredible.
I've literally had people come up to me and say, that story gave me hope for a relationship, or I was still stuck in what someone said about me and someone's opinion of me from a past not healthy relationship. So I continue to tell the story, and I tell it with the same heart, love, and emotions every time, because that's how I was impacted by it. I still can't believe how it's all unfolded, and
it's epic.
It's
Steve.
Oprah worthy.
It totally is movie worthy. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've actually
channel, watch out.
I've been invited to share it 4 times on Oprah's radio network back in the day. She had different hosts at the time, but yeah. And I told Tina, I said, if ever you end our relationship, you're going to torpedo my speaking career.
Sorry. Oh my God, you're killing me. That's great. That's awesome.
But see, it's there's a sound to it. There's a purity to it. There's when I talk about Tina, it's always in a certain tone, verbal tone as well as emotional tone. And I think it's important for people to be able to tap into their best tones as often as possible as well. Before we wrap up, how can people get a hold of you, learn more about you, find your schedule of events? Because I hate to always end on that stuff. I always love to end on happier stories and stuff. So we'll get that stuff out of the way first.
So my practitioner page is backinmotionpllc.com. So backinmotionpllc.com. And I have a media page on my website, which has my music, my albums, which are available for streaming on all major networks and players, as well as an event page for the different sound healing events that I offer throughout New England. So, and honestly, I'm the only Carlos. If you Google Carlos sound meditation, you're gonna find me. It's just I don't have any other Carlos competitors at the moment, I guess, that do sound meditation.
In this great big world, no other Carloses are doing sound meditation right now.
That I know.
Carlos, you are one of the most, and I say this often, you're one of the most in-tune people that I know. You and I have had conversations that are legendary. You inspired the article called "Holy Crap, I got to go meditate. You've actually been in my recording studio, not the one I'm currently in, but the first studio I built, the one I built with my dad. And I lost my dad at the time of this recording about a year ago. And I was in that studio recently, still dismantling parts of it. And I happened to see my drums and my guitar were there. And I said, the last time these things were in tune was when Carlos was here. And he picked them up and you tuned them.
I remember that. I do remember.
And even when I was playing afterward, the room sounded differently. So I want people to understand that if they invite you into their lives, things are going to be more in tune. And I think people will get to recognize more of their own inherent, natural, born with musical and sound beauty and their connectedness to the things around them, and to understand that without someone like you in their lives, whoever it may be for them, they risk missing out on so much beautiful noise, because there is so much beautiful noise happening. The world is moving faster than ever before.
Right.
In some cases, it's angrier and louder than ever before. I truly believe there is more good out there than bad. The bad makes so dang much noise. Sometimes it can be hard for us to be able to tune through it and find the good stuff. So I encourage people to seek out your Facebook page, your website, your information. The links will be in the members area of the Vision Board Mastery website, motivationalfirewood.com, for them to access and get more of you, because I just love being around you anyway. And that's why that's the biggest reason for this conversation.
You know, everything is, it's just truly an honor. Everything you said, just, it melts my heart. And you are certainly, you illuminate, Steve. You illuminate through your joy, through your passion, and through your authenticity. For crying out loud, it's contagious, you know. And the one thing of all the things I've gone through learning with the shaman, is this whole notion that when we can connect with that true authentic self and just own where we're at, it invites so much freedom into our lives for new experiences. And so I give thanks to you for being that example and owning, and you are always owning where you're at in that, you know, ebb and flow. So just can't thank you enough for that. And you are my brother from another mother, for sure.
We most definitely are brothers from another mother. That is for sure. And as I said, our conversations are legendary. And I remember after the very first sound meditation, which was the one where I talked about having a speaking event, I had great nervousness and fear. It was the single biggest paycheck of my life at the time for one day's work, and a lot of pressure. And at the end of the event, I was sitting there with my arms up on my knees, kind of just rocking a little. And you started talking to me, and I said, I said something, and I said something else, and you put your hand on top of my head and said, you might want to sit here for another 20 minutes or so. And you were off greeting everybody else. And it actually is the single greatest speaking event memory of my life.
That's awesome.
It was,
That's so cool.
It was so authentic and so real and so connected. And from the day of that sound meditation journey through to that, I just knew exactly how it was going to unfold. And all I did was just work on putting together the best presentation possible. And you took a lot of and believe me, I'm a last minute, you know, adjustments and tinkerer, I should say. I'm a tinkerer, and I didn't for that. And it's funny because even the day of, all of a sudden they said, we need you to do 15 minutes less. They started tinkering, and I just said, okay. It just was it. I was just there, plugged into it, and you've helped to guide me to be more like that. Because when I worked with a life coach 16 years ago at the worst time of my life, one of our sessions, and he wanted to do a bit of a sound journey with me, and he had a brook in his backyard. And he says, we're going to sit next to the brook, and you're not going to speak for 30 minutes. I didn't make it 30 seconds. Didn't make it 30 seconds. And I think it was, what are we doing this for? Why aren't you talking to me? And he goes, I said, what's this? I'm not paying you to tell me to go shh. But the last 10 minutes of it, I wish could have lasted another hour. When I finally got it, it's the brook. It's the crickets. It's your drum. It's the bowls. It's you. And it's your energy. And it's for people to invite people like you to be a part of their experience, not to change their wiring, not to change them, but to be part of the experience, to just show them there's a different way. So
well said. Well said.
Thank you so much, my
Steve.
friend. Oh, thank you for being a part of this conversation. And I can't wait for more people to be positively affected by the experience of you as my life has.
Thank you so much. And I wish you continued success always, and look forward to the next time we cross paths and create legendary stories with or without fruit flies.
Yeah, well, depends on which restaurant we go to.
That's true. That's true. I'll let you pick.
Yep. Awesome. Carlos, thank you so much, my friend. And namaste to you.
Blessings, brother. Bye-bye.